Calvin Castine, and on the side, actually, of St. Mary's Academy in beautiful downtown Champlain. This is where 48 years ago I graduated. And this coming weekend, the class of 62 is going to be celebrating their 50th anniversary and dedicating a little tree, I guess, in Paquette Park in memory of Ma Dupe, who was such an important factor to those of us who wandered the streets back then in the 60s. We're here for, this is the 5th day of July 2012, and 2 days ago my daughter called and said she'd gotten a message from principal here, Sister Cordata, and it kind of took everybody by surprise. So she got the call, I guess, on the 3rd. It might have been the 2nd. That St. Mary's was closing. That all of a sudden we've had fundraisers and things, but to the best of our knowledge, the school was going to be remaining open and going. It's kind of been a year-to-year thing, but we all understood that, and we figured every year we could get out of this, so much the better. And
I heard it started a long time ago.
Well, 1906, as I believe, is when the Sisters of the Daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus first showed up from France and started a school. The meat locker, who just fell down
right
last fall, was for a time the school before the days of St. Mary's. And the school, the first part that was put up, there was a building here that they bought and became the convent for the sisters. Then the stone part you see in the back was put up, and then the brick part, and then the one story building was put up probably right around the era of 1960, late 50s, early 60s. And if you check Hometown Cable Network, you can find Bob Venn was here filming that in the late 50s, early 60s. You see the hills being taken down. You used to drive in from where we're standing here. You used to drive in. It was like a horseshoe, and you drive out over by Lucas's house. So it was a horseshoe driveway. The buses would come in and drive out. In fact, there's still a vacant lot there. If you look, there's still a vacant lot with no house there.
I didn't know that.
And the dirt that was taken from those hills that separated the school from the church were put in here because the gully that you see that over by Route 9 and across the road here off Pine Street, that gully ran right through here. And so all this area here was all deep and filled in. So that's what happened. I was about 7th and 8th grade when all that was going on. And then in '69 the diocese announced that St. Mary's Academy High School was closing, and the school's been operating since 1969 as an elementary school. And now suddenly the whole school is closing, and we just tried to get a hold of Father Del Bell, the pastor here at St. Mary's, but he is on his way to a funeral for Father Crable in Plattsburgh, so he's not available to talk to us. We will talk to him later on as part of this. But we are talking to one of the chief fundraisers here, the woman who calls us up every year and says, "You're going to run that concession stand at the bazaar?" And and we talked to her last on camera when she was with the folks at Riley Ford, and they had a car to raffle for the bazaar, all to keep this school open. And last fall you took on you're a teacher here, but you also took on another position?
Yeah, in December as the director of advancement for the school.
And what does that mean?
Well, the diocese rolled out a program that was to further Catholic education through a different means of fundraising rather than selling candy door to door and constantly going to the same people, give me money. And what the program is yes, we develop people who have donated to us in the past that have shown an interest in the school and keeping it going, as well as developing your alumni through your parish, and reaching out boundaries a little bit further than just right within our community for funds. You do that quietly instead of how we did last year, save our school, we're going to close if you don't give us money, which was very effective for money. People were extremely generous, as they always are in this community. They're just incredible. I'm never amazed anymore at how people step up. So we were doing this quietly so that people didn't know that, we needed money. We always need money. I mean, to run a building like this, you need money. And our enrollment had dropped last year because of the crisis of saving the school. We were down to 48 students. So we felt that we could increase enrollment and increase funds quietly. So it's been a tough spring. It's been up and down. Key people we thought that would donate weren't able to give now. But we had a target goal of $117,000 that we had to raise to pay for the insurances, and we agreed to raise that money. It did take longer than anticipated. I was told that I would have till June 30th to raise the money. I was hoping to have it by April, so I wouldn't have to worry about it during the bazaar. But that didn't happen. So we'll continue to raise money, and the night before our deadline, which actually the deadline got moved up, we needed to know by the last day of school whether we would have the funds or not. And I did have a donor that closed the gap based on everything else that we had raised, and they were willing to write a check for the difference so that the school could remain open. So we were given the word that the school would stay open. We went to closing mass and everything in anticipation of that.
Closing school year.
Closing the school year.
Closing for the school. Closing for the school
Right,
year.
closing mass for the year. So we anticipated the school would remain open. And by raising money quietly, ironically, we've raised our enrollment 22 students for next year.
Yeah, so, my wife Judy attended that, and one of the things that Sister Corrado told the kids the last day of school was that you're going to have 22 new kids to teach the values of St. Mary's. Did I mention your name yet, Amy Gehrig?
I don't know.
Probably. I'm mentioning it now, Amy. So
for those who don't know me, no.
My apologies.
So actually, we have 29 students that are new. You have your fallout every year. We had the 4 graduate this year, and actually, this was going to be one of our biggest graduating classes in a while.
Yeah, because I heard that all the 5th graders were coming back.
Yeah.
Don't start crying.
I know, I'm not. Sorry.
All right. I warned her. So all the 5th graders were coming back. It looked like it was going to be a banner year. Then now all of a sudden the proverbial rug has been pulled out.
Right.
So.
Right. There had to be a meeting. Our budgets have to be accepted like any business. The budget was written, and our parish finance guy, Mike Tooley, reviewed it. He had several questions for Sister. She answered the questions, and we had a projected shortfall. I believe it was like $72,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
Budget you needed by
for next year, right.
Budget.
So that would be the amount of money I could raise. Well, okay, that's nice. It's cheaper than what I've had to raise in the past, so okay, I can do that. Yeah, no problem. So, but then he felt that we were being a little optimistic in some of our projections, so he felt the shortfall was going to be $89,000. So they went to the meeting. Father Delbell and our 2 trustees, Linda Seymour and Jack Dawson, and they met with the bishop, Monsignor Coyne, the vicar of Catholic Education, and Sister Ellen Rose, who's a superintendent at Catholic schools. And they met for a couple hours and came up with a plan. Now, there was no one from the school there, so, we're going on hearsay back and forth of what went down in that meeting. But in that meeting, they did decide that St. Mary's could stay open, but with some restrictions. And one of the restrictions was that the Director of Advancement, which is what I'm doing now, would now become the Director of Advancement for the Church of St. Mary's.
Instead of for the school.
Instead of for the school.
So people who are giving money specifically, and everybody who gave you money was giving it specifically for the school,
Right.
would now be giving it to the parish with, I'm assuming, no guarantee that it would be used for the school because the parish has obligations. And
Well, I would
responsibilities.
hope that it would be brought to the school. I can't imagine that they would keep the money for themselves. But the church has obligations too, and that is our primary obligation first is to our church. We are a mission of the church, St. Mary's here. And I think we're a very huge part of that mission in the evangelization of our children. I mean, we reach our children 5 days a week with the message of God and love and care, and and the kids love it. I mean, it's not like, okay, sit down and recite for me, things from the Bible. It's not like that. It's living what Jesus has taught us each and every day, and we have upheld that mission with an incredible staff here in this building, as you know, very dedicated. Sister alone, over 53 years with Catholic education. Many of our teachers in there with over 20 years. They are now unemployed with jobs that aren't to be found, which is heartbreaking. 12 people are being affected by the closure of this with jobs.
No, I think I heard somewhere that the faculty had said they'd be okay with the pay freeze.
Yes. The faculty had agreed this year, along with the budget. We were trying to give as lean a budget as we could. That they would receive no pay increase this year, that they would now be responsible for cleaning their rooms each day, emptying their trash and sweeping and whatnot. And as you said, yes, the kids would probably end up doing that
I went
for
to school
us.
here. You're too young to remember wax paper, but when bread used to come in wax paper, the good sisters, and we had wooden floors in that brick part and then the old stone part, the good sisters would say, put this on the bottom of your shoes and rub that floor, wax that floor. So we waxed the floor with wax paper instead of floor wax.
All right. So, well, it would become obviously a part of the daily
a team
chores,
effort.
which is good.
A
The
team
kids
effort.
need to know that they need to be a part of it.
They got to clean their rooms at home. So,
Right.
Why not?
And they would vacuum it as well. The teachers also agreed to come in this summer. Linda Seymour had suggested that we come in and we deep clean and paint, and we were all willing to do that in order to save some money. So the meeting, as I said, the meeting went down, and the restriction would be, that was the first part of the restriction. The second part would be that all funds raised from this point on would be non-refundable. Because the money that I raised this spring, I had said when we had a meeting in February to the diocese when they were all there that I morally and ethically could not raise the money for the school if you were just going to shut it down in June. That if I raise this money and we don't make it, it goes back to the donors.
So the 117,000 that you had raised, and I assume it was all from donations, not from fundraisers. So you can account for where every dollar came from.
We can count for where every dollar came from. Yes, yes.
So when you approach the people, it was not for the school year that we just finished. It would be that the school would remain open.
Correct.
At least another year. And
Right. That's the point of the advancement, is to keep it open. But we did have a shortfall this year, and I did approach people that would. I was hoping that I would be able to, as crudely as it sounds, a couple people called it, you're looking for a cash cow. Well, yeah, I'm always looking for a cash cow, a few of them. But what I was hoping is I'd get 4 or 5 cash cows that would close this 117, and then all the rest of the money that I was raising for the advancement would be for the continuation of the school. However, that did not come to fruition. So now any money that I would raise from July 1st on would be non-refundable. Again, then our projected loss for next year had now jumped to $150,000. I would have to raise $100,000 by January 30th, or they would close us down.
in the middle of the year.
No. They would make the announcement then that we would be closed, and then another $50,000 by the end of June. So I'm totally for making a decision in January. Carrying this out. It was my suggestion that we do that. However, to have every penny on that date, my thought was if we're moving in the right direction and we're getting there, then we know we're going to be open. Or if we're already increased our enrollment even more, I mean, we need to continue working on enrollment. And we had a plan in place for that as well.
Well, obviously, if you're jumping
Exactly.
a third number of kids.
I know, and we've worked very, very hard. Everyone in the school, the teachers have taken on different roles, and we've been very proud of the changes that we've made here. It's been incredible, and the stress of living your job year to year for these folks, and yet they still stepped up to the plate every single time. What can I do? What needs to be done? With letters that had gone out for donations, the teachers were right there helping, filling out envelopes. Amy, what do you need? It's just been an incredible journey. And I don't think he realized there was a stop sign.
Whoa, somebody was in a hurry up there, and I didn't hear any crash. I just heard a lot of brakes, so hopefully there wasn't a kid in front of him. So all this money was raised, all this dedication. Obviously, the teachers here, like so many teachers also in public school, but particularly here, they're talking about St. Mary's. When that bell rang at night, they didn't rush out the door.
No, as you know.
They're here for a little bit longer than just when that school day is. They're here for the full day.
Many of our teachers spent hours after school working with the kids one-on-one. There's no pay for that. There's no, just because they love what they do and they believe in it. And I think that's why our children have grown so much and are so attached, because we know them. We know them. We know all of them. It's not just the children in our classroom. We know all the children. We know the families. And it's incredible having that close-knit family,
Yeah. So it looks like, until I talk to Father, I will not put the last nail in this casket. But
no, we hope that there's still room. There's been no room for talk. When our donor said that, what happened is our big donor then said, well, I'm very uncomfortable with this. It doesn't sound like the money will be going to the school, and see what you can do to come up with some other stipulations here.
So right now that 117,000 that you were ready to,
I have it in an envelope with a deposit slip.
Instead of going to the parish, it's going back.
It will go back
to the people who gave it specifically for keeping the school open.
Correct.
If the school is not going to stay open, then they might feel that they were misled.
Right. You're right. And I did not want to go there. All the years of volunteering to raise money, that's the last thing I want people to think is that, we were pocketing any of the money.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Amy, that you want to say at this point? Maybe
well,
after I talk to Father.
I want to thank the community, especially, the businesses and the people that every time I've called have been there and have supported. It is an incredible community, and I want the kids to know that Jesus is walking right by your side right now. And thank you to our staff as well, and everyone that has given what's the word I want? Without question as to what they're going to get in return. They've stepped up to the plate. They have been there over and over again, and kids, every last one of you, we love you much. The alumni, we love you. It's been an incredible run, and it is a very sad day. God's weeping today, right with us.
All right, that's been Amy Gehrig, and hopefully the last chapter is yet to be written here at St. Mary's in Champlain.
Thank you, sir.
Catch my breath here.
All right, it is now July 6th, Friday morning. And you were attending a funeral for a cohort yesterday.
I didn't actually get there.
Oh, really?
Well, things got kind of busy here, so by the time I was ready to go, it was too late to go. So I had canceled a doctor's appointment too to go. But
there's been a few of those in the last several months.
Yeah. Sadly, Father Coyer. And now Father Crable. Father Crable is a great guy. I was together with him in Plattsburgh in St. John's back in the 80s. We lived together at the rectory at St. John's Rectory. He's a great guy.
So you were close?
I knew Father Crable well, yeah.
So.
Good man. Yeah.
You've been here how long, Father?
7 years. This is my 8th year.
Time flies, doesn't it?
Sure does. Boy, you can say that again. That's why you just came. In another way, it seems I've been here forever.
I know, days go by so slow sometimes, and then years go by so fast.
That's it.
Father, as you know, we're here to talk about the closing of the
Right,
school,
yeah.
and Tuesday, that'd be the 3rd, my daughter Danielle, our grandson Abe has been
Right,
coming
yeah.
here for, for 5 years now. It would have been his 6th year this year, coming up. She got a call from Sister Cordata saying that the school was closed, and since then, I guess a lot of the other media has picked up on it. And you got the top of the Press Republican today. That should let you know the importance of this, I guess.
Well, it's certainly big news for us, and it's not something that we expected to happen. That's why it was so shocking. A week ago today, actually, it seems a lot longer now, but a week ago today, Jack Dawson and Linda Seymour, the 2 trustees, and I went to Ogdensburg, and we thought that we had things pretty well in hand. We had the money, we believed, to finish the school year and pay all our debts. Except for the big debt that I had borrowed, but the year's debts looked like we were all right. We wouldn't have to borrow any more money to clear the year. And the enrollment looked like it was perking up a little bit. It still wasn't spectacular, but it was getting better. It was getting better, and that was it was going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And but the diocese was really serious. They wanted a plan. And the reason they wanted a plan was because we haven't been able to pay on the loan that we took out when I first came here to keep the school open. And so they wanted a plan to show how we were going to not only get through next year, but how we were going to at least begin to make some payments on that loan. So we met with the bishop, and we met with Monsignor O'Coin, we met with Sister Ellen Rose, the superintendent of schools, we met with Mike Tooley, the diocesan financial officer, and he had done a budget, a pretty good one too, I think, a very realistic budget, maybe. We sat, and we were there for 2 hours, we did negotiating, and I encouraged them. I pleaded for the school. I felt that we should have another year. I thought that we were on the right path, and in the end, they agreed. And the bishop, in the end, agreed too that we should take a chance. That we should open for next year. But there were some conditions. And the conditions really were pretty reasonable, and in a way, there are conditions that every Catholic school or parish school has to comply with. First off, it's a parish school. It's not an independent entity, and therefore they wanted all of the bookkeeping to be done through the parish office. We have a bookkeeper here. They wanted one account, and that one account, then it would be easy to keep track of everything. Easy for us, but also easy for the diocese to keep track of how much money we had, where it was coming from, where it was going.
One accountant, but it would still be segregated.
Oh, absolutely. The school, the parish and the school would not, the parish is not going to take any money from the school.
Right. So
and even now, when somebody gives on Sunday an envelope and puts school on it, and they put some money in there, it always goes to the school. It never goes to the parish, but the school is a ministry of the parish. It's a mission of the parish. It's not a separate entity, and this is what the diocese wanted to emphasize. Also, in Mike Tooley's budget, it showed that we were going to have a deficit, a rather big one, of about $140,000 next year. And they wanted us in the fundraising to raise a certain proportion of that by January 31st. And I've spoken with Sister and with Amy Gehrig, and both had agreed, or told me actually, they came up with a date that by January they would know whether we were going to make it through next year or not. So that seemed like it was pretty reasonable to me to say January 31st, although I think I would have negotiated eventually a little bit further down the line.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good time to announce the closing of a school.
Right.
But as a rule of thumb kind of thing, I was willing to accept that. And they wanted $100,000 raised by then, which wasn't unreasonable either, really, because I thought we had raised quite a bit of money this year.
So that'd be from this point on, not what's already been raised.
Oh, no, this was from this point on,
Right.
from the beginning of this next fiscal year
Right.
on. This was for next year, to close the budget gap for next year. And so I was willing enough to agree to that. And they also wanted Amy's position of Director of Development to become a parish position, to once again emphasize that the school is a ministry of the parish, and not because we are trying to steal money from the school for the parish. The parish budget is in balance. You know, the parish is surviving. We don't need to take money from the school, except that we have had trouble paying that loan that we took out for the school. So all we're asking the school is to really help us pay that loan, you know, which was taken up in their behalf. And but everything that was promised to the school, any donation that would come to the school, would be designated for the school and would go to the school.
So even though she would be not the school representative, she would be the parish
Well,
representative.
that's right.
The money she raised
And then she'd
would
be in charge
still-
of all the fundraising, which she does pretty much anyway.
Yeah. But,
So, I mean, there
but the
was
money raised specifically for the school through her office
absolutely would go
gone-
to the school.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, there was just no doubt about this. She wouldn't be, you know, as I say, right now the parish doesn't need, you know, and certainly we certainly wouldn't steal from the school. I mean,
Take from the right pocket,
I know
put
we
in your
wouldn't
left
do it.
pocket.
I mean, if it's designated for the school, even now it goes to the school, and it
Right.
always has, you know. So, and it will continue to go to the school. So, but I think Amy was concerned by that, but needlessly. But anyway, and there are a few other conditions, which were fairly minor, I think. But at any rate, we left the meeting, Jack and Linda and myself, pretty confident. You know, the bishop had given his okay, had said, "I'll take that risk with you," which I thought was really nice of him. You know, he'd been very, very helpful, and he'd been very much a part of the conversation. And so we got back to the car, and I called on my cell phone Donna, our bookkeeper, to tell her to call a sister and to tell her the good news. But there were a few conditions, but I didn't think there were any problem. And within 5 minutes, sister called back, and Amy was there and wanted to know what the conditions were. And I told her, and Amy was not happy with these conditions, especially raising the 100,000 by January 31st. It is tough. It's a challenge, no doubt about it. Nurse was very keen about it being a parish position, not a school position, Director of Development. And so by the time we got to Waddington, I mean, it happened so quickly. By the time we got to Waddington, sister called back and said that one of the major donors had not accepted the conditions and had withdrawn. And I told her, I said, sister, that means that we're going to have to borrow money. The tripwire is tripped, and we have to close. And of course, we went from up here to boom, all the way down here. And I thought about over the weekend, I just couldn't see any way out. I had to keep my promise, the promise I made to the parish when I first came and borrowed all that money. Plus, the diocese had made it clear that because we hadn't been able to repay much on the loan in the last 3 years, and because they had decided that the parish really couldn't afford the school, basically, that they were not going to lend us more money unless we closed the school. So I mean, I was between literally that famous rock and a hard place, you know, and it was closing in on me, and I had really, at that point, I had no choice. But we certainly did not go up with the intention of closing the school. Nobody wanted to close the school. We thought we had the money, and it just fell through. It fell through at the last minute.
Now, I know the school community is organizing to try to save the school. If you had to put a scale on 1 to 100 here, would you start it at 0? Or
It's not going to happen. It's too far along.
we're only a week pass
Yeah,
the other,
but
why would
we've sent back all tuitions. We sent out letters. It just is not going to happen. Plus the fact that the future was not that bright. I think I'm not going to go through this again. I think this time it's final. I think we've reached that point where we just have to say it's over. We've had a good run. We've done our best, but it's over. The tripwire has been tripped. I think that everyone is exhausted. We have had so many near misses. It is over. If I could look forward ahead and really see that things would change, if I could really see that the economy was going to change, that the money would be there, that the students were going to be there in the numbers that we really need, excuse me, to sustain the school, then I would say, yes, let's go for it. But I look into the future and I just see more of the same. I don't see that we're, really, for that school to be viable, we need somewhere between 130, 150 kids, And we would have had 67 next year. There's just no turning back right now. Plus, I think there's a lot of support in the parish itself for closing it, because I think the parishioners realize that we just can't afford it,
So there's no thought to letting the
There's no point.
the people involved.
There's no point. Are we going to do this every year? Is it going to be a fire sale every year? I don't think there's any point. I think the tripwire has been tripped. And you look back at what we actually raised this year. Amy worked her fingers to the bone, and she really knocked on every door. She uncovered every rock and turned it over. I don't think she missed very many people. And something, we did not get very much money.
Well, that substantial contribution was
but,
over 50,000. That's one person. I mean, that's.
But Calvin,
If you take that out of the equation,
kind of looked into that contribution, and I'm not convinced that it was a real donation. I think it was more on the line of a loan that would have to be at least in part repaid. And I'm not going to say any more about it than that.
Yeah.
But I've looked at it and it's still very fuzzy in my mind. But this is pretty much the conclusion I've come to, is that it was never a real donation to begin with. That it was really a loan, and very generous. I'm not saying it wasn't generous, but it was really a loan that would have to be repaid, at least in part, because these wasn't very generous people. But on the other hand, that does not meet the requirement at all. When you look at the actual donations, the actual money that we raised, and after all of that work, it wasn't really that much.
well, it takes a lot to raise a dollar. It takes a lot of
Well, it sure does.
empty soda
Well,
bottles.
it sure does, yeah. And I mean, by raising, I mean, I don't mean the bazaar and the card raffle and all that. I mean just going to people. People have a little bit of money, might be interested in investing in education. That's the dog. She'll answer the door.
The rectory is closed today, so we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Well, that ring on the doorbell turned out to be an important ring, parish-wise. A priest does a lot more than just worry about the books. He also administers to the folks, and we've got a parishioner with some deep concerns right now. So Father's taking care of that. We did check with him, and he's pretty much covered what he would like covered in this topic. I know from the scuttlebutt around that the chapter has not been closed tight yet. There are still people in the community who want to try to keep this school open. At this point, it looks very, very doubtful, but who knows what the future might hold. But at this point in time, on this 6th day of July 2012. It's 2012. It looks like St. Mary's School is history. As we said earlier when we were talking to Amy, the school opened back in 1906. The entity of St. Mary's Academy started in 1906. The 1907, they bought the Hackett House, which became the convent. Shortly thereafter, the stone building was put up, then the brick building, then in 1959, the one-story building that became the high school and now was part of the elementary school. That was opened in 1959. So probably the 59-60 or 60-61, probably the 59-60 class was the first one to graduate out of there. So for the time being, this will wrap up the Hometown Cable's look at the closing of St. Mary's Academy, and I'm sure it's going to have ramifications. If the school does close, I would suspect that it will have an impact on attendance here. Folks might decide to attend another parish. I know back in '69 when the diocese made the decision to close the high school without the parishioners feeling that they had a direct input in that. There was a lot of resentment there, and the Bishop's Fund Drive suffered for many, many years because of that. And hopefully all this that's happening here will turn out for the best, and that the people of St. Mary's Parish can continue as a faith community.